What's up, everybody? We're back. Welcome to the Horrorheads podcast, kicking off season 2 right now. I am Rich Mallery here with my co-host Jerry Lourenco.
Let's go. Season 2, Rich. You ready?
Hell yeah. We took about a month off just to kind of like rest our livers a little bit, although I did not rest mine. I drank very heavily over the holidays, and I'm still continuing to do that today. Let's see. You can follow us on Instagram at Horrorheads Podcast or email us your love and hate at horrorheadspodcast@gmail.com. So what's been going on? This year so far has kicked a lot of people's asses. For me, like January has been hit or miss. Like my newest film, Feral, did have its world premiere last week, and we sold
Hell
out
yeah.
the motherfucker, and that went really well. So hoping that movie releases in about a month. What about you? What's been going on? How you been holding it down for the past month?
I mean, that's amazing, man. Congratulations on dropping another film. That's so cool and that's great. And you sold out a theater with all those crazy fires going on in
Oh
LA
God, yeah.
surrounding the theater. Must have made for a magical experience. But but yeah, that's crazy. I mean, for me, I'm definitely not doing a dry January. It's been a little crazy, there's always some shit going on, but I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to be kicking off season 2. Still trying to get over the fact that we did a complete first season, and really looking for season 2. I think we're just gonna go bigger and better and just be more badass until they kick us off and they don't let us do this anymore. I think that's the goal, right?
Hell yeah, yeah. We got some really good guests lined up for later in the season. I don't want to drop names yet because people do tend to cancel. But yeah, no, we're gonna go hard. We're gonna experiment with some format stuff this year and just see what happens, see what people are into. So today we're gonna talk about director Robert Eggers and his library, which includes we're gonna really focus on his first film, The Witch, and then we're gonna talk about Nosferatu, which just came out on digital the other day, and that's really popular right now. So super stoked to get into those. I'll be honest, I have not watched a ton of horror just because, like you said, I've been kind of finishing up my movie, and then just with I'm in LA, so like the past 2 weeks have been really stressful with all the fires. So the last thing I wanted to do is watch a lot of horror during this time. However, I did watch this movie the other day. It's a HBO Max original called The Front Room. And I'd like to do a study on this. I think probably maybe 80% of all movies that are originals, whether it's Max, Shudder, Tubi, I would say are pure shit. And this one is no different. I forget if I said the title already. It's called The Front Room. It stars Brandy. And
Yeah.
it's about this married couple who's like down in the luck financially. And something happens where the guy is reconnected with his stepmother who's on the verge of death. And she says, if I stay with you when I die, you can inherit my fortune. So they take her in. And what was really rough about this movie is I would say 33% of it are this old lady shitting and pissing herself. And I am not
Mm,
exaggerating. It was almost every scene once like she's shitting and pissing and like complaining about shitting and pissing. And the movie was disgusting.
yeah.
It was terrible. At no point I do not recommend it. It was something to watch, but oh my God, it was fucking disgusting. Did you watch it?
I feel that, Rich, and Brandy will always be Moesha to me. So I'm hoping I'm not aging myself right now, but she's always gonna be Mo. Um,
And she looked good. She looked good in it and she was fine in it, but the movie was pointless and disgusting.
I think I got through about 20 minutes of it and then I turned it off. What I realized in 2025 is that life is too short to waste time on shit, and I will not be a victim of shit horror films anymore. So
Well,
so
I
I
mean,
I,
for
I
this
turned it
podcast, we're
off.
gonna watch a lot of shitty movies, but
But I'm getting paid huge dollar amounts for my time to be here. So maybe, that's what it is. When you're backed by Maker's Mark and Bullet Bourbon, there's the cash rolls in. So
yeah, I
I
mean,
mean
if we
that's
gotta
that's
do
really
it, we gotta
why.
do it. Yeah.
That's why I'm doing it. So I know you did watch something, and I don't think we talked about it on here, but I think we could talk about it now. I think we both watched Heretic.
Oh,
And
right, I did watch that.
yeah, so this movie is being speaked about often in the horror circles, and people are really going on and on and on about it, like it's the best film of the year or close to it. And I don't know if I feel that way. So I mean, I'll give my take on it, but what did you think about Heretic?
So I feel like it started off pretty like okay, kind of felt like Barbarian in the beginning,
Yeah.
and then it just became like talking and talking. Like there's like 10 minutes where this guy's talking about Monopoly, which I still don't even understand the point of that whole conversation. It was so boring to me and like it didn't make a lot of sense. Like it really falls apart. I would say at the 40-minute mark, and like I just couldn't wait for it to end. I don't get like what people like about it. I mean, it was different, I guess. It was somewhat of an original story, but it was, and I think Hugh Grant was good in it. He played that role really well, but there was too much dialogue and it just went nowhere for me. And I think I've realized that like A24 used to be, if it's A24, I'm gonna watch it. Now I'm kind of like I'm over it. Like their movies kind of feel very similar now, and it's like I don't get. And I believe this was A24. I hope I'm
Yeah,
right.
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this movie, and I'll never watch it again. What'd you think?
I'm with you on that one. It was like monotonous, long speeches, a lot of religion, which I find extremely boring. Not to offend anyone, I'm not speaking of any religion in particular. I just think like, like some sort of history on religion kind of dialogue is
Yeah,
not
there's
something
a
that's gonna
lot.
lock me into like a horror film. And it was tons and tons of dialogue that really kind of went nowhere. And you hope that, I'm used to a slow burn. Slow burn is not a new genre, especially, since A24 has emerged as one of the big film houses. So you kind of get used to that. You get used to the type of films they make, but they have to boil over, that's the whole point. And when that happens, that's the big moment that make you go, oh yeah, all right, man. I just don't think that happened in this film. I just didn't get that feeling. So I didn't like it either. And again, I saw it on a lot of people's lists for, top film of top five film of 2024. I'm just not feeling it, man. It's not even on my top 50, you
Yeah, it
know.
just shows what a year 2024 was for horror, right? When this is coming out. And there's like, and not to spoil it, but there was like a twist at the end, which also didn't make a lot of sense and was kind of like, so what by the time you got there? I was like, okay, great. Like, I was just wanted that movie to end. Yeah, I think it's a pass for me. No, it's a no on Heretic. I don't need a theology class that
Yeah, no,
doesn't really
no,
go anywhere. But
not at all.
before we get into Robert Eggers, which his first film was A24, The Witch, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Let's pour some bourbon. That's what I'm
Yeah,
here to
yeah, yeah.
do.
That's what the
And
show is about, right?
hell yeah. And for tonight, I picked up my favorite bourbon, which I have not drank for the show yet. It is Woodford Reserve Double Oaked. And this one I have here is Barrel Finish Select. I don't know if I've ever had that particular one, but I'm gonna pour this. And I love Double Oaked. It's 45.2% alcohol, so 90 proof. And here we go. Nice heavy pour for me. What do you got there?
Yeah, so so you were going big, so I went big. I went with my Maker's Mark wood finishing series. This is a 2023 limited release. I think it's BEP. I don't know what that stands for. I guess some bourbon people could send me some hate mail and tell me that I got it wrong, but this is a banger. This is 111 proof barrel
Whoa!
strength.
Damn.
Um, and it's pretty sick. So like it's really tight. Wow. Okay. Sorry, I'm fighting with this. I'm like getting pulled away from the microphone to like fight with this. So this shit's real, people. This is happening live, and I'm fighting with a bourbon bottle. But yeah, man, I'm ready to take a sip.
All right, let's do it. Cheers to season
Cheers, season
two.
two.
That is a dark color of what you got there.
Mm. Oh, it's because it's gasoline. Woo!
Yeah, what besides fire, what are you tasting?
Mm. No, it's quite delicious actually. It's a heavy burn the second it hits your mouth. It's actually making my lips a little bit numb. It's serious. This is serious bourbon, but you know what? You could definitely taste a lot of cherry in this, and it's finished in like wood staves, and you could definitely have like that nice woodsy kind of warm taste right at the end. I like it. I like it a lot, but this is a banger, man. And this is I wouldn't call this a easy sipping bourbon, but I hope, if anyone listened to season one at all, I hope by my second one, I don't care.
Yeah. You already look like you don't
How's
care right now. That look in your
yeah.
eyes.
How's that double oaked? I know it's your favorite, but what are you getting from it tonight?
So what I like about double oak is it tastes different to me than any other bourbon I've ever had, and it's smooth, right? But it also has a little bit of heat because this is 90 proof.
Mm, yeah.
But it tastes like I get chocolate. It tastes like
Oh
chocolatey to
yeah.
me, which is like very different than that caramel we usually get. It's a little darker, either like a chocolate or a coffee I'm getting from it. And yeah, I love this bourbon. And I haven't bought it in a while because it is a little on the pricier side, and I have been on a budget. But fuck it, tonight we're gonna do it. I think it was like $60 for this bottle, which is not insane, but like it's not something I buy all the time, basically. And I wish I did because it's delicious.
Yeah, it's not something I'm gonna bring out when I have guests. I'm gonna tell them they're drinking it, but
It's
they're
not going into
not.
the decanter.
But
Yeah, and this bottle is probably not going to last too long. Although I think I'm going to save it for when I really want to sip something versus when I'm just trying to like drink away the pain and forget.
do you save your and we're getting off topic here, but this is a part of the podcast talking about
Yeah,
bourbon and
deal with
stuff like that. Do
it.
you do you save your favorite bourbons? Like you don't want to finish it, or is it a race to finish it? Like what is your philosophy on drinking your favorite bourbons?
Yeah, so here's the thing. So I used to have a lot of different bourbons in the house like you. I know you usually are sitting on minimum of 12 different types of
Yeah,
bourbon.
definitely.
I have since like I'll be honest, I don't keep a full stack anymore, and I usually only have like one or two bottles at a time, and really it's just economic. So I'll just go out to the store and I'll buy like one bottle, and then I'll finish that one bottle, then I'll go buy another bottle. So, for me, yeah, it's like I don't really do that, but in this instance, like if it's something I really love like this, I am probably gonna buy another bottle that's my everyday drinking bottle, and then this is going to be my
Mm.
like weekend or whatever like special kind of things. Yeah, I mean what I'll do too if it's something like I really like and it's going to be one of those like four bourbon nights, and I say four, maybe it's six, maybe it's seven, but like if it's gonna be four bourbon nights, the first one I'll pour will be something I really love, and then like as I get deeper in, I'm gonna switch over to something that's cheaper because after a little while, right, it doesn't matter. It's all
Doesn't
fucking,
matter. It
it's
doesn't
all just
matter.
alcohol at that point. It doesn't matter what I'm drinking after like the second one. So why drink the good shit if I can just Jameson's just gonna do just as fine.
I definitely feel that. I'm the same way where it's like suddenly I'll switch. Really for no other reason that is I lost the urge to care. It's like I just don't care
Yeah, I'll
anymore.
drink paint thinner at that point if it's
Yeah,
like in
yeah.
front of me. Like, why would I want to drink something that I love versus like I could drink anything and get the same effect?
Yeah, man, just pull out that Hennigan's.
Yeah, yeah. Let's get into Robert Eggers, who's having a big
Yeah.
moment right now, and he's kind of like been this filmmaker that he gets praised pretty much every movie. I have not seen all of his films. I've really only seen his first and then the most recent one. So, but he burst onto the scene in 2015, putting out The Witch, which I know I saw in theaters when it came out, and people went kind of nuts because it was like nothing you'd seen before at the time. Like I had not seen a horror movie like this, and love it or hate it. And now that I've seen it a couple times, it plays that very different for me than it did the first time I saw it. But back in 2015, it was something brand new. It was a fresh voice. Like smart horror was kind of coming back at that. Like people were saying that, and he had a moment, and he basically could have done any movie he wanted instead. And he doing another like straight horror movie. He did this movie the Lighthouse, which was like a black and white movie that I have not seen, but very bold choice. Then after that, he did The Northman, which is a Viking movie starring Nicole Kidman and Ethan Hawke, which is interesting. But I have not seen that. You've seen that, right?
Yeah, I have. And what's his name? Skarsgård guy's in it as well.
Oh, the guy who plays Orlok
Yeah,
in Nosferatu.
think the other
Oh,
brother,
I get them
I
all
think.
confused. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he's in it. Yeah, and I saw The Lighthouse too. I guess like when that came out, it was super highly recommended. But honestly, I just truly wish with any of these films, almost like a rating R, I just wish that they would make you aware if there's any sort of animal violence in the films, and there was a bit of animal violence in that film that I didn't particularly care for, and it really kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, even though I will say it was a pretty excellent film.
Oh, wow.
Great storytelling, great visuals, black and white did not hurt it one bit. Great performances. I mean, it was just it was a good film, but I'll never watch it again just because of one scene, I think.
Yeah, and there's some animal violence in Nosferatu too, which we'll get to a little later. And I think his next one up, they just announced it today. He's going to do a werewolf movie that I believe takes place during like the 1300s or something like that. So
You love werewolves.
yeah, I know. I was saying the other day, I've never seen a werewolf movie that I've enjoyed, but so he's doing that. But it seems like for him, like period pieces are kind of his thing, and like historical mythology and folklore is kind of his thing, and now gothic horror with The Witch and Nosferatu. And look, it's the types of movies he makes are not the typical type of movie that I would watch. There's just not a lot of them. There's not a lot of movies
For sure.
that are period horror or gothic or anything like that. So let's talk about The Witch. So The Witch basically takes place in a New England town in 1630. For whatever reason, William and Catherine, a married couple with 5 children, are I'm not sure if they're thrown out of the town that they live
They're
in or if they
banished, yeah.
leave.
Yeah.
They're banished for some kind of problems they have with the type of Christianity that's being worshipped in this town. So they leave and they go off into the wilderness, and a lot of bad shit happens. Basically, they're stalked
Yeah,
by
that's
a group of
accurate.
witches, and who gradually kind of make them turn on each other and go insane. And the movie, it's here's my thoughts on the movie. It's beautifully shot. The music is incredible. Costumes are great. The acting is really good. It's a slow burn though. And the first time I watched it, like it didn't matter because I was so intrigued by what was going to happen next. Because it is like you're not really sure where it's going to go. But now that I've seen it a couple times, it's a more difficult watch. Like I could appreciate it for what it is, and I would say it's a good film, but it's a slow film, and it does kind of really slow to a crawl like in the back half of it. The movie's 90 minutes, but it feels a lot longer. I don't know. What are your initial thoughts on The Witch?
Yeah, I mean for me this film basically looked like a painting at certain points. I mean, it's incredible costumes, set pieces, lush landscapes. I mean, it's so far from like what a horror film is that the attention to detail on the non-horror elements and getting everything right is actually incredible. And I've seen a few of his films, and I feel like he really started picking up his style in Northman, where he just is like shooting from different angles and unconventional shots. And I think this film, like right away, I probably, if you didn't tell me who did this, I probably would have known who did it, just because I was like, "Ooh, that's a weird, like over the top look, or a side shot that you wouldn't expect, or really just kind of like, not focusing in on like, maybe where the action was, and it's just kind of catching you." I mean, he does a lot of really interesting things with his direction, and that really pulls me in. Now, getting into the story, I mean, it's set in the 1600s. I mean, they're basically, living this very hard life in a very isolated place. There's really not a lot going on there. Basically, this is going to be driven a lot by storytelling and really what people believed, during that time. And I think that was really for them, it was probably like a source of, things like religion and science and things that they didn't understand, was probably more of like a source of entertainment than, say, for people like us, where we're just like, man, you're kind of dumb, it's like you don't see that. And I mean, and this was just really a story about like a really dumb family that got persuaded way too easily into, thinking that their daughter was a witch in the beginning, you know, and I feel like she was framed, but then it was like almost one of those instances like where you set it up and it just kind of comes true. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
so I never saw this before, and I really felt like I was like, man, this character Thomason, who's played by Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, it's her first film, by the way, which is interesting because she's blown up since then. She's in
Yeah,
everything.
I
So,
mean,
like,
she's huge now, and I'm actually a fan, and I thought she was actually pretty fantastic in this as well. So you can see why she's doing, so well now. Um, I mean, I feel like she was framed by like her siblings. There's this goat,
Black
Black
Phillip.
Phillip. Yeah, Black
He's my
Phillip,
favorite part
and
of the movie. I love Black Phillip.
he was an asshole. And the whole time I'm like, fuck is this goat, man? I'm like, what does this goat have to do with anything? And there are definitely some twists and turns. So I personally, me, I was engaged in the story. Again, it's a religious story, not my favorite topic or genre, but I was like, where is this going? I guess once you know the kind of like outcome, it's probably not as interesting, but it definitely had me locked in. And at times where I wasn't locked in, the visuals kept me there.
Yeah, again, I've seen this a bunch of times, so it does kind of decrease for me with every watch because I do know everything. And speaking of, yeah, Black Phillip, who to me is the highlight of the movie, who is the
Hell
goat,
yeah.
who ends up being like basically the devil. I'm assuming there were
Who would have
supposed to be,
guessed?
yeah, there were supposed to be a lot more scenes that they were gonna do with the goat, but it wasn't very trained and like wouldn't do like the things they needed it to do, so they had to scrap all of that. But I think what's hard about this movie to watch, besides like some of the children being kind of assholes and kind of really annoying, is Anya Taylor-Joy's character Thomason. They pretty much just mentally and verbally beat the shit out of her the entire movie. And like I kind of get that like in the 1600s like she was a young female, so already kind of lower status. They weren't clearly going to marry her off to somebody, so she kind of had no value to them, right? Like, and they even have some kind of like almost like you assume there's going to be some kind of incestual thing with her and the brothers.
Yeah, it didn't
Basically because
feel
they're so
right.
isolated, which was really uncomfortable. But like it was uncomfortable to seeing how like mean and cruel they were to her the entire movie. But I kind of get the feeling that even if they weren't in the situation, they would kind of still like treat her like, the Cinderella basically, and just, your only job is to, do chores and take care of the kids. And like, if we can't set you up to marriage, like, what's the point of having you? And that got really hard to watch because again, she is a very likable character. You feel really bad for her. And then like in the ending, like you understand why she makes the final choice that she makes because they pushed her to that. It's like you said, self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If like you keep accusing this person of being a witch, you beat the shit out of her the whole movie, and then it's like, what do you think's gonna
Like
happen?
what would you want to happen? And I mean, you feel like before really anything unfolded, obviously a big point of this plot is that just one day their newborn son just disappeared with really no explanation, and you just kind of feel like maybe not the parents, but maybe the mother kind of like really focused on the Thomason for like blaming her for like how or why this happened, but she is just like I won't even say she's a teen daughter. She might even be like a preteen,
I think she's like supposed to be like 12 years old, maybe.
12, maybe 13. Like, she can't be responsible for like what's happening, with like even her younger siblings who look like they were probably four and this newborn kid. I mean, I don't know what mom was doing if Thomason's doing all the work,
Yeah.
that she couldn't keep track of, what was going on with this newborn. But obviously, the kid was taken by a witch, and the kids, Mercy and Jonas, they're the little kids, and they're two little assholes.
Oh yeah, they're so
So
hard to
if
watch.
you
They're so
know, if
funny.
if anyone watches this, it's like if you don't know it, I mean, they're assholes. I'm not saying anything that shouldn't be said here, and really to shut them up. Thomason just kind of says like, yeah, I'm the witch in the woods, and I took the kid. And instead of that like coming off as like a joke, it's like this family is just so embedded, I guess, with like religious fear that like they took it as like facts, and even the parents kind of bought into it as well. And it was like it's ridiculous, and I think again, like with the self fulfilling prophecy, it was really messed up that they blamed her for being a witch and she ultimately becomes a witch, but like they accused her of being a witch because there was a witch in the woods, but then in reality there really was
Yeah.
a witch in the woods. So
So
it's
it's
just
like
so
how
like
wrong were they, right? Like it's kind of like the thing where like there's the alien that's gonna kill all of you and you think it's so and so, you don't really know, and it's like Yeah, like I think that's the interesting part of the movie is like it's not just they're paranoid, like there actually is a bunch of witches out there who are fucking with them the whole time. So
I definitely want to talk about that witch. So when Caleb and Thomason they get lost, in the woods during that scene, and eventually Caleb finds the witch's house, just the witch in the woods that they tell stories about. And I mean she was pretty terrifying, and you didn't think anything would happen to the kids, but shit does happen to like kids. No one is innocent in this particular film. But what I really want to say is that witch was super hot,
I
man.
know
And
I would have fell
I'm
for it
I'm
too.
yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you, dude. I would have made a move,
He did.
I mean, he was a little young, but I mean, if you get me in there, bro, like just can we like talk to somebody, like, because I would like to just be chilling out in the woods and just kind of stumble upon this house and like, wait a minute.
Yeah, no, that was a really creepy and effective scene. Again, the music and like just like not knowing what's going to happen. And then it sets up something like later in the film when, the son Caleb comes back from his encounter with the witch and is completely like just fucked up and like
It's
under
like
the spell.
catatonic almost,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I will say that like that scene, it's really well acted. The kid is really good for a kid,
Yeah, for
but that
sure.
scene goes on way too long, and it's like just him like yelling, and
Oh,
it's a tough scene to get through because it goes on way too long, I think, and that's kind of what for me where it really slows the movie down, and like the final act of the movie, like it gets insane. Like it gets pretty brutal and like some really messed up shit happens, but there's probably I don't know how long that scene is, but it does take you out of it a bit because especially on the rewatch because it's like okay, like let's just get to like the ending at this point. So that
I
was
have
like
a question
yeah.
about that particular scene since you've seen this a few times. So during that scene where Caleb is kind of freaking out, the two other little kids are kind of freaking out too. Now, I don't know if it was clear in that moment. I rewound it to kind of watch again to really kind of process like what was happening, and I don't think it happened for me. So the other two kids, Mercy and Jonas, they were kind of freaking out too when Caleb was freaking out. So were they actually at that time, were they possessed by Black Phillip or the witch, or were they just kind of trying to frame Thomason into thinking that she's the one that hurt Caleb? I couldn't really figure out like what the point was. And I know the father kind of threatens them and then they kind of snap out of it, but I don't know if that was out of fear or if they were joking or what was happening. What is your take on that scene? I couldn't really understand it.
I've watched it a few times and it's definitely not clear as to if they are kind of under the spell of the witch or not. It does seem to me that they've been communicating with the witch through Black Phillip. So I do think that whether or not they're under the spell, I definitely think there's something going on with them that's not quite right. Whether again, they're kids, right? And they might be like 6 years old or something like they're not old, so it's like maybe they're not processing it, but I do get the feeling that there's something behind the scenes going on with them.
Okay.
But it's not clear in the movie, and every time I watch it, I'm not sure. I like five like for like 5 minutes, I'm like, okay, they're possessed, they're gonna do something bad. Then I'm like, oh wait, maybe they're not. So
Yeah,
I'm
they're
not really
faking it.
sure exactly. Yeah, but I do. My gut tells me that they're definitely involved in some way, or at the very least, they're communicating with the devil.
I feel that, and I could definitely go with that theory because again, I think I was 50-50 at best. I mean, there are two little pricks, so I'm like, they're faking it and they're just trying to get, Thomason in trouble. I'm like, but this is serious though. I mean,
Yeah,
like
there's something
Caleb is
sinister about
hurt.
him.
Yeah, like Caleb is hurt, and it's like, would they be joking around at that exact moment, like where their brother is basically almost on like his deathbed and they're like fooling around and the parents are getting really upset. So I wasn't really quite sure like what was going on with that. But yeah, okay, good. That kind of helps clear some things up for me because I only watched it the first time.
Yeah, so a couple of like just facts I have about it before we kind of
Sure.
wrap it
Yeah.
up a little bit. So, Robert Eggers with all of his movies, he does a ton of research on everything to make it really accurate. And he did like, reference a lot of folklore, fairy tales, and written accounts of witchcraft. And a lot of the dialogue apparently comes from court records and diaries and journals of people at the time. And the movie, it's definitely the language. It's hard to understand at some points because like they are using that Victorian language. And I will say that the lead actor's voice, who plays William, he's got a very deep voice. And watching it on my TV, it was definitely difficult to understand him without subtitles, just because when you have that deep, bassy voice, it kind of gets covered up by rumbles when you watch something at home sometimes. So unfortunately, I did have to watch this with subtitles on just to kind of fully understand what he was saying. And then the other fact about it that I thought was really cool is, it's Robert Eggers' directorial debut. He's, a very sought after filmmaker now. He had only done shorts before this, and he wrote the script for The Witch, and it wasn't finished. And unbeknownst to him, his editor sent it off to some producers. Robert Eggers was horrified because he's like, "Oh my God, I don't want them to see this unfinished script. It's like not good. It's not what I wanted." And apparently they loved it. And a few years later, they financed the movie, and then now he's like a huge name. So it's just interesting how like some of these things work out for some people. I think he had written it back in like 2010, and then it didn't get made till like
Wow.
2015. So you just got to keep at it. But I thought that was a pretty cool, um, a cool story because again, like you always wonder like how these people get these budgets and stuff like that. But
I mean, there's a lot of twists and turns in this story, and it's not conventional, and this is made for many audiences, maybe just not, horror fans. I think, I don't even know if I'd call this a horror film. It's a creepy film. It's a scary folk tale. There's a cult involved, but I just never really felt dread or tension. And outside the few acts of a brutal violence, and when it in this film, when it does get violence, it goes from 0 to 10, and some of the most graphic things I could imagine. I mean, I don't think we're spoiling anything with like a film that's almost 10 years old, but I mean, when Black Phillip kills William,
oh yeah, that's
like
like
I
unexpected
wasn't even
too. Yeah.
I was just sitting there and I'm like, what the fuck?
It's funny, like, and I've seen this movie probably 4 times, and when it happened on this watch, I'd forgotten, and I literally
Yeah.
said, "Holy shit!" like out loud by that because I was not expecting that to happen, and not in that way. I mean, for me, it is a horror film. For me, I do feel the dread, I feel the suspense.
Really?
I
Okay.
wouldn't say it's like scary with like jump scares, but it's creepy throughout. So I definitely would classify this as a horror movie, and I do think it's scary. I do think, and there is like a lot of violence in that last act. I think there's a couple of things that could have been a little more intense. Like there's the scene where the mother is hallucinating, breastfeeding, I guess, her baby. And then it turns out it's like I think a crow or a raven like pecking at her breast, and that's fucked up. And I remember first time I saw that, I was like, "Holy shit!" But watching it now, it happens so fast. Like I feel like it could have been a little more graphic or brutal, and maybe they chose to not make it that way because like the effects and the budget and stuff like that. But I feel like they could have gone a little bit more. But again, they not that they needed to. Like it's fine, but if I had to like if we're critiquing this stuff, right? So if I had to like pick it apart, I'd be like, "Oh, I wish you could have done some of that stuff a little more." Last note I have on this movie, when they're walking through the forest, it's Caleb and Thomason, and Caleb's holding that rifle that is like bigger than him. And it's
It's just
like
like 6 feet long and he's three
it's like
feet.
so funny
So
watching this little boy like carrying this ginormous rifle. I just thought it was so funny. I don't know if it was meant to be funny, but it was funny.
I mean, he got some shots off earlier with Dad, and yeah, and in that scene, there is some animal violence, which again, they could have went in a different direction and not include it all. There's absolutely no reason for it, and if we change anything in the world with this podcast, I just hope someone listens and just kind of gets the message that this is not horror, It's this is
I'm over it.
stupid,
I'm
silly.
I'm over the violence with
Yeah,
animals. It's I get they're doing it to like make you upset or feel something, but it's like there's other
there's
ways to do
so
it.
many things you could do. There's so many things you could do. There's a million things you do outside of that, and so I wish they didn't do that. And I think really like my final note on this is really in that final act, and where things get really violent. And I would just say in that final scene with the fight between Thomason and her mother, it was just what a brutal, tragic ending to a film. And it's not the last scene, but it's close to the last scene. And it's for me, like it kind of stayed with me. And there's not a lot of films that like I'm still thinking about the next day. And again, this was just like one of those scenes. I was like, man, that was tough. That was a difficult watch. That particular scene. I didn't mind Dad getting stomped out by
by Black
Black
Phillip.
Pillow. But that last scene, it really got to me, and maybe I'll just leave that a mystery in case no one has seen this, and I won't spoil that. But to me, that was probably the most brutal moment of this film, and it really kind of leads you to like why Thomason made her next choice, which would be to join these witches. And I just want to say that Black Phillip's voice, sexy as fuck,
Oh
man.
yeah,
Like
in the end, yeah.
who was that dude? When he started talking, first of all, I was like looking around. I'm like, where is that coming from? And it's like this deep, like kind of whisper. And it was like, man, that's fucking kind of hot, man. It's like, I wish my voice sounded like that. This podcast would be doing a lot better if my voice sounded like that. Let me tell you.
Yeah, and I know we're gonna wrap it up, but like that final scene where Black Phillip's talking to Thomason, and the first thing he
Yeah.
says to her, like to get her if she wants to get her to join them and the witches, he says, "Wouldst thou like the taste of butter?" And I always thought that was an interesting thing, and I looked it up, and apparently, in the time that this movie was made, the Catholic Church declared eating butter a bigger sin than lying or blasphemy. So butter was not allowed to be eaten, so that was like a big deal.
Oh, so she was like just kind of like denouncing almost religion by
Yeah,
by
which
accepting that. So
yeah,
that's
I didn't get
that's
the
huge.
symbolism.
Thank
I
you.
just thought
Yeah,
like,
that's
oh,
a
like butter, like what a weird thing to say. But like
I
it makes sense.
maybe I thought it was a delicacy in the 1600s. Maybe I think that's kind of like where my head went with that. And yeah, but yeah, that's really interesting, and that makes a lot more sense than wherever my head was
Yeah,
at.
yeah. So let's wrap this up. So what we do on this show is we rate all of these movies on a scale of 0 to 5 bloody knives, 0 being the worst, 5 being the best film that we've seen in a long time. And we do a little drinking game that we're going to do this season as well. And what that drinking game
Mhm.
is the number of bloody knives I give a movie are the number of sips Jerry needs to take of his whiskey and vice versa. So I'm going to let you give your rating first. Very curious to see what you thought the first time you've seen this movie.
So I really didn't know what to expect. I think at one point in my life, closer to 2015, I tried to watch this. But I was a much different person back then and maybe wasn't ready for films like this. Watching it this time, I liked it. Think it was a really put together film and a story that was told really well. And I liked the story, and it did keep me interested, even though it is a slow burn. It did keep me interested. It kept me locked in. Is it the best movie I ever saw? No, definitely not. But it's a good movie. So for a good movie, I'm giving it three bloody knives.
Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna go a little higher. I'm gonna give it a 3.5. And again, it's a really well done movie. It's like nothing I had seen before. It's beautiful to look at. It definitely keeps you interested. There's a lot of suspense. Acting's really good. It does, even though I like it less each time I watch it, I still enjoy it, and I'm gonna watch it again. Maybe not for another year, but I will watch it again. And that's that. So I'm gonna drink for 3 seconds. You 3.5, and cheers.
Cheers.
3 seconds on that 111
Wow.
proof, man. Good
Holy
luck.
cow, man. That was serious. And the good thing is I don't have any drinking games planned for this, since we're covering some pretty serious films and they're not kind of akin to a drinking game. But let me tell you, 3 seconds on this 111 proof is making for a hard day tomorrow.
Yeah, and speaking of serious films, a film that I did not realize was going to be as dark and disturbing as it was. We're going to talk about Nosferatu right now. And, it's funny, when this first came out on Christmas Day, pretty much everybody I had talked to was raving about this movie. And then as time went on, I started hearing more people have negative critiques on the movie. which is just interesting how like maybe it was just from hype in the beginning. And people still really love this movie, but there's a lot of people that think overrated, etc. So this movie, it's Nosferatu, right? It's the remake of the 1922 film, and it basically tells the story of Dracula. In this case, his name is Count Orlok, and he is living in he's a noble undead vampire living in Transylvania who buys some property in Germany to get really close to this woman Ellen that he's obsessed with. And again, just like The Witch, this movie's beautiful. The cinematography is incredible. The acting is amazing. Lily Rose Depp, who plays Ellen, absolutely incredible. The actor who played Thomas, Nicholas, I'm not going to say his name, but
Halt.
Nicholas Hoult is really good in this, I think. William Dafoe, always good. The music's really good. It's like, but I'm going to maybe give a controversial opinion. I really did not enjoy this film at all, and I don't think I'm
Really?
ever going to watch it again. And I'm curious as to like your thoughts on it. I'll give the reasons why I didn't like it in a minute, and I have a really strong opinion about it, but would love to kind of know how you felt about it, and if you're in the same page as me.
Gorgeous film. And honestly, within the first 2 minutes of this film, I knew this was like an Eggers film, just the way that it was shot and the interesting, camera play that he was doing. I think this is a really good retelling of the original Nosferatu. And if anyone has ever watched the original Nosferatu, it's a silent film, and it's hard to watch because it stutters a lot just because of the way it's shot. It's like frames. You can like see the frames.
1922,
But
right?
it's yeah, but it moves quick and it tells a story. And for me, this pretty accurately tells the same exact story, just with like better visuals, and these visuals are gorgeous. So I liked it. I liked this
Really
film a lot.
interesting.
Did I think it was a horror film? No, I don't think this was a horror film either. Did I think that this was a scary story? Yeah, 100%. Is about as scary as, watching like Bram Stoker's Dracula or the original Nosferatu. It's a story about something that is almost a love story. It's a story of obsession, and it's a story of power, and there's supernatural elements going on, but it's still a good story. And I think the way they told this was really interesting. Would I have cut a half hour out of this film? 100%. 100%. There is no film that should be getting close to that 2.5 hour mark. And I'm not quite sure what they filled it in with versus the original Nosferatu, because it's a really close, like all the scenes are there, but it's like you filled it in with Ishtar. That doesn't help, but it's still the same story. And I did think, the actors were incredible. I don't think Bill Skarsgård was the best performance out of the lot of actors that you mentioned, but I think he chose a direction and went with it, but maybe through no fault to his own. I just probably would have played Count Orlok just a little different. I mean, I think that's my probably issue with the film.
So I would say the two things that I have an issue with in the movie, it's I don't even know if they could have cut out scenes. It's just the pacing. It paces really slow, and it was really hard for me to like keep my attention on the movie because it drags. It really drags. And I get they're just trying to like it's atmosphere, it's like, it's the cinematography, it's the visuals, but for me it was like I just wanted to like get to it. Like that first hour before he even gets to Germany, it just seems to like take forever and focus on things that I'm just not really caring about too much. The thing about why I will probably not watch this movie, at least not for a long time, it's hard to watch. And like you mentioned it being a tale of love, but to me, it's a tale of like grooming, like sexual assault, like pedophilia, and that makes it really hard to watch. And basically, like, the plot of it is like Lily Rose Depp, who plays Ellen, when she's a child, she has these psychic abilities, and is just looking for acceptance. And she finds that in the older vampire, who becomes obsessed with her. And I'm assuming they, had sex. Maybe they didn't. But he just gets in her head and just abuses her for her entire life, basically. And he keeps saying things like, I'm going to give you a choice. You need to choose whether you want to be with me or not. But he really gives her no choice. Like
Yeah, no, he's killing everyone in his wake. Yeah.
yeah. And like, so I will say two things. One, I do appreciate this different take on the vampire because vampires kind of do that, right? They kind of are not really living in the world of like consent and they use mind control and other things, but in most movies they do romanticize that, and make it like, oh, it's sexy, it's sexy. Here, like this movie is very like quote unquote erotic and sexy, but it's much darker than that. And it's interesting because like a lot of the comments I say, like, it's like, oh, this movie made me so horny, this movie made me so horny. But again, it's like he's like, he's a child rapist basically. Like
Yeah, no,
it makes it
and
really hard to watch. And her performance of that person experiencing this trauma over and over again, who just wants to like live a life with her husband and has all of this shame from this. It's really tough for me to like sit and watch a movie like that. And I appreciate it, but
I
I don't know if I
feel
can watch
you.
it again.
And I definitely want to clarify, and by a love story, I did mean between Thomas
Okay,
and
yeah.
and Ellen, and
Who have this pure love,
he
yeah.
was going through like the ends of the earth to basically save her, and doing everything, every choice he made in this film was for her. The reason he went to Transylvania was to kind of give her a better life. And then when he realized, what was going on, as dangerous as Count Orlok was, he did whatever he had to do to get back and try to help her, knowing that this guy was not like, say, human, and that he was facing some sort of supernatural being. So that's what I meant by love.
Got it. Yeah, that
I
makes
was
sense. Yeah.
not, yeah, I was not, I did not view this as a sexy dark romance or anything like that. Honestly, I thought with the cast of Lily Rose Depp, I was getting something like The Idol, and I did not get anything like that from what I watched. There was brief moments, and maybe I don't know the scenes that people were getting into. If it's like the ending scene, to me, I just found it gross. But I don't know. I didn't get that at all.
Again, I don't know what other people are seeing who are like having a different reaction to this movie. Like maybe and here's my take on it. There is a lot of stuff that I missed that I was having conversations about this movie, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even get that. I didn't pick up on that. And I think because the pacing is so slow, your mind does tend to wander a bunch, and there are like important things people might say that might seem like non-important that are kind of important. Like I actually didn't understand like the ending. I was like, why did she do that? And then someone's like, no, like William Dafoe literally said that. And I was like, oh, I missed that. So I think maybe people just are going into it and just getting kind of like seduced by the visuals and by like certain parts of it and are not like realizing that like no, like this isn't like this is like this guy is pure evil and like destroyed this person's life. I don't think people are
He destroyed a
necessarily
town. I mean, he
that
destroyed
too.
a
Yeah.
village. He
Yeah.
destroyed everything in his wake, and all this motherfucker was doing was moving. I mean, the chaos that this guy brought building moving homes is a
Yeah, he
nightmare.
brought the
And
plague basically
yeah, I mean,
to Germany.
he
Yeah.
was awful. I mean, yeah, I mean, hundreds of people died because of his obsession with Ellen, and him basically wanting to move next door to them. And it was, I mean, yeah, I mean, it was crazy. And but to think about the visuals just a little bit, I think they did a lot of nods to like almost like the original film. And I don't know the last time you saw it. I actually
Been a
saw
while.
it in prep to watch this, just so I kind of knew what I was getting into. And I'd feel like this is a take between that and Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's a little bit of both combined, I think. But just like they used to do that, the way they cut scenes with the circle zooming in and zooming out and things like that. I feel like there was a lot of elements of that, like in this film, where they use like that, like the heavy vignette of like to focus your attention on like one little spot. Like I have this giant screen and I'm focused on one tiny little spot of this screen, like where they want you to look. And I was like, and it keeps you focused on that area. And I think they attempted to keep you locked in visually when things were maybe moving so slow elsewise, or as being like run by like heavy dialogue and things like that. And I just think like the way that they directed you in where to look and what to listen to, I think that's what kept me locked in. And I made it a very specific point to watch this film alone, to watch this film with minimal distractions. I took my phone, I moved it, I turned all the lights off, and I really want to lock in this film. And I feel like that's really the way that this film needs to be watched, because there are little things that are happening, and maybe dialogue that is important, that maybe it's just blended in with like 100 other lines, and you're like, what was important out of that, So I understand what you're saying. It just becomes static when they're just kind of yammering on for like a 10-minute like thing. But some of it was important, and I just felt like they just gave little cues, and I think I like that about this film, that you had to stay locked in. So I found that part interesting, and it didn't turn me off.
Yeah, I mean, you do, and maybe I needed to see it in the theater where, although part of me was like, I'm glad I'm watching this at home because, like, I think at a theater I'd be like, get me the hell out of here. But I do think the other reason why the pacing is maybe even more of an issue for me is it's like I know the story, like it's Dracula, like right, so it's
Yeah,
like
it's
I
Dracula.
know for the most part I know what's going to happen. So for me, if like it's just taking forever to get to a certain point, like I kind of do zone out. And I definitely think I zoned out a lot and definitely missed some stuff. So like I might rewatch just to kind of like see what I could pick up on that I wasn't paying attention to. But again, it's a hard watch. It was like it's funny because in the beginning I am like, oh, this is like sexy, it's erotic, and then like I'm like, whoops, no, it's not. This is like one of the most disturbing movies ever made. And look, I give him credit. It's a much darker take on a vampire than I've ever seen before. And it does like make you question a lot of these every other vampire movie that you've ever seen. That it's like, wait a minute, like why are they glamorizing like this when it's like they're evil for the most part? And they become these sympathetic characters who are just lost, but it's like they're dark and Orlok is extremely he's terrible. He's pure evil, which is the point. Like I get it.
Yeah.
And I respect what Robert Eggers did here. I do think it's incredible filmmaking, incredible storytelling. It just really wasn't for me. And I think I just needed that pacing to really move a lot quicker, especially the first hour. Because like just get him
Yeah,
to
it was.
Germany, get him to Germany, and all this stuff's gonna happen. Like I already know like the story. So that was my real issue with it.
I mean, I love the scene where he was traveling to Transylvania, and he stops, at that inn, and everyone's just like, don't go to that castle and stuff like that. I mean, to me, that's like one of those like classic scenes, like really kind of taken right out of the original. And then, I mean, the same exact thing which happens in the original is when he's making his way to Orlok's castle, and he gets to the Borgo Pass, and that creepy, mysterious kind of carriage comes and picks him up. And to me, that was like one of the most stunning visuals of the whole film, with like this deep black contrasting with like the snow, and it was just so gorgeous and creepy. And then all of a sudden, like, you're riding up, and I mean the castle in the original Nosferatu looks like, it's like someone's house. This looked like so menacing and awesome and amazing that it's just like, holy shit, there was just a lot of like stunning visuals that like wow, it's like I this was good, that he went in this direction, and they captured it, and they created this world, and it was very cool to me. And that was definitely probably like my favorite part of the scene. And then when he gets into the castle, and he meets Orlok, I mean, I think I kind of found like humor, because I was just kind of laughing about this Orlok guy, and he was just like kind of like wheezing the whole time,
At least the
and
entire
he looked
movie.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like really like old and kind of like not healthy, and like he's offering food and drink, and I'm just like, I don't know if I would take like
No.
food or drink from this guy. I feel like I'm getting like the flu, pneumonia, and COVID just by like him standing next to me. And I was like, I'm not taking shit from this guy. Like wash your hands, bro. It's like I just didn't like it was just like I just kind of like I was immediately turned off by the vampire. Did not find him sexy at all. I found him decrepit and like I don't know if I'm a germaphobe, but I was just like, dude, man. I'm like, just you stay on that side of the table, I'll stay over here. But I don't even want to touch your food. I'll order from like White Castle or something like that. You know, it's like I don't want your shit
Yeah, I mean
touching me.
they made him like he was pretty much like Orlok, like he's pretty much rotting, right? Like he's
Yeah.
undead and not doing well. And like speaking of like visuals and like what, the visuals that a lot of people are talking about that we do need to address is we do get to see Orlok's cock
Mm,
in
mm.
it. And
Yeah.
uh so we do see that, and that was something well, I was expecting it because it's all I heard about for the past
It,
month,
I
but
heard, but it wasn't it wasn't a standing shot, and it wasn't like I wouldn't say it was crystal
no.
clear, but I don't. There was a lot of hype
Too much
around the
hype. There was too
nudity.
much hype. I was expecting, based on the hype, I was expecting him to have this monster like hog
Like
between
Kid
his
Cudi,
legs, which he did
like
not.
Kid Cudi,
Yeah, it was
you
not Kid
know,
Cudi and X. It was
it's not
definitely
Kid
not that.
Cudi,
It was
and
rather small and white, and that's all I
yeah,
say. And look, he's probably a grower, not a shower, and he's been dead. So, and he
He's-
doesn't have blood right going down there apparently. But yeah,
yeah.
I was like, I was waiting for that to see it because that's you want to see it, and I was like, oh, I wanted more. I don't know.
So, a few people have told me about this film kind of building up to the hype, and people were rushing to the theaters to see this, and I was just like, my curiosity just kind of takes hold, and I kind of just like I want to know. I'm just like, what is this? What is this film like? And they're like, okay, it's like they're like just picture like Bram Stoker's, but with a lot of nudity, sex, and violence. And that's really how I went into this film,
It's not that. Yeah.
expecting it. And
Yeah.
and I don't think, and maybe everyone's threshold for nudity, sex, and violence is different. I don't think I'm on a hard edge of any spectrum when it comes to that. But I didn't think there was a lot of nudity, a
No,
lot of
there
sex,
wasn't.
or a lot
There
of
wasn't.
violence.
No.
And I mean, what was it there? Yes. But was it like extreme where I would point that out as like an element to the film? I probably wouldn't. I wouldn't say that this is a film that has a lot of nudity and violence. It just wasn't that to me. I mean, was there a lot of death? Yes. Was there some violence? Yes. Was there some nudity? Yes. But like I would have been like, it's a slow burn with amazing visuals and great camera work and a lot of dialogue. I mean, that's
Yeah,
probably how I would have,
I
described it.
agree.
So I was a little let down because like when you're expecting, and I don't want to sound like a perv here, but when you're expecting like nudity and violence, you expect nudity and violence. I mean, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it wasn't the movie I expected at all, and maybe that's why I liked it a little less than I might have if I would have went in without like all the hype. Like I did try to go see it on Christmas Day, but it just didn't work out. And maybe I would have felt a little different, like knowing nothing about the movie. But yeah, it was hyped up. And again, there's like probably minimal violence, right? And a lot of it's off camera and like it's really quick. I can't even remember, like I'm sure there was, but I don't remember the nudity. And I watched the movie last night. Like I knew there's some, and there's some sex. I will say though, there's a sex scene with Lily Rose Depp and her husband that scene like leading up to it, that's when she has like the big epileptic freak out that people are talking about, and then they have this really passionate sex where she's just like, let's show him how much love we have for each other and stuff like that. That is a brilliantly done scene, and like that's like the scene you're going to see when they like this goes for Oscars if it does get that far. But that scene is really great, really well done. Unfortunately, it happens like an hour and 40 minutes into the movie, and I'm already kind of checked out at this point. I will say I think it's a much better movie than the Bram Stoker's Dracula Francis Ford Coppola did, just in like terms of like like really filmmaking, whereas that kind of almost feels like hodgepodge and cartoony and like big difference between the character playing the husband versus Keanu Reeves playing that character. And
Yeah, for
so
sure.
way better acting and movie than that was, and a much darker movie. That movie's pretty dark too, but this is definitely better than that. But yeah, I mean, I was underwhelmed. I was not impressed. Like, and it's funny because I'm watching it and I'm like, I did not think you were going to enjoy it just because of the pacing, because it fucking is
So,
fucking.
so a lot of it is probably familiarity with reading, Dracula, with being familiar with the original Nosferatu and seeing how far they took like when you watch the original, it is so basic and it is just, it is telling the story, from the book, but the way from that to Bram Stoker's Dracula to this, just the way it evolved into this surreal world that is gorgeous and really just kind of making like 1838 look amazing and gorgeous, even though it was filled with,
Rats.
rats and hunger and, just lack of food and money and things like that. I mean, they still made it look like it was a great place to be because the way it was shot. I mean, it looked fun at some point when they were like standing around and they were drinking scotch and smoking cigars. And I'm like, I want to live then, but then something like a rat is could destroy a town. So I mean, it's just how you look at it. And I mean, I think I have favorite parts from the book and I have favorite parts in the original. And for me, it was probably just looking forward to like what I would consider classic scenes are. Like I like the classic scene with the boat ride where he's going, back to Germany and the crew is like, our cargo is cursed and things like to me there are just certain scenes that I like and I was curious how they were going to show them. And of course with this budget and this level of directing, it was gorgeous and it all worked for me. So that's probably why I liked it. But I mean, just like any other Dracula film, I mean, I'm not gonna put I'm not like in reality I'm not gonna put this on. you
Right. Yeah,
know
yeah. I'm not gonna
like
watch it.
this is like I'm not gonna watch this on Saturday. This is not gonna be like a part of my rotation. It's not that type of film. Like it's probably something I'll watch like every 3 to 5 years, just like I watch all the other ones. I just it's not my favorite genre. It's not my favorite type of film, but it is a great film. I would go so far as to say that. I think this is a great film. Do I think it's a great horror film? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
You know?
So anyway, I have nothing more to say on this one. I'm not gonna just keep repeating
Yeah,
what I
I
didn't like
feel
about
you.
it. So I'm ready to kind of get to rating this, and I'm gonna go first. And I really hate to do this because, like you said, it is a great film. It's really well done. It's again beautiful. Again, I can't stress enough about how well done it is. But I gotta go with, will I watch this again? And if the answer is no, it's got to go. So like I'm giving it 1.5, which I hate to do on a
Wow.
movie like
Holy
this,
cow.
but I'm not, maybe in 5 years I'll put it on and just be like, oh, maybe I'll appreciate it more like another time. But right now it's I'm not going to watch it again. So, and if I would have paid money to go to the theater for it, I'd probably be pissed off. So, yeah, 1.5 for me. And sounds like you have a different take. So,
Really? Yeah, it's like I almost wish I forced myself to go see this in the theaters. Just like you, I did have plans. It wasn't on Christmas Day, but it was soon after Christmas where I really considered going to the theaters to watch this, but I suffer from some back issues and I could not sit in a theater seat for 2.5 hours. So I figured, at this point, we're a couple weeks away from streaming. I'll just wait. Um, I think I planned the correct night for it. I think I had the right mood, and this movie, it's a mood. That's the best way to describe it. if it's not your mood that night, it's probably not going to play well. And that sounds like what happens. I was ready for it. I liked it. I thought it was gorgeous. I thought this is right in line with his other films and probably like the next level up for him. I liked it. Am I going to watch it again? Yes. But am I going to watch it again this year? Probably not. But I will watch it again. And for that, I'm going to stick with my previous. I'm giving it a 3 as well. I,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
liked it. I think
Yeah.
it's a good film.
I can't get mad at 3, and I really wrestled with my rating because it's tough to give a movie like this a bad rating. It really is. And again, I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It's not the movie for me, and that's how I got to rate things. So yeah, so 1.5 seconds for you, 3 for me. I'm gonna finish this drink on this. Let's cheers to that.
Cheers. Woo. Listen,
And
I'm
yeah,
I'm
look,
surprised I like it because I like shitty movies, and
yeah,
this is a
I'm
good movie.
shocked
So
actually because I'm
so
watching
I
this.
know
I'm
I
like,
know I know why. Yeah, I know why you think that I wouldn't like it because I do like shitty movies, and that's what I prefer. So when there's like a really strong good movie, chances are I nitpick and I hate it. But this just hit that moment for me. It really did.
yeah, and I like art movies, so it's odd that I didn't like this. But again, I just think that the pacing needed to be better, and the themes made it really, really challenging for me to kind of sit for 2 hours and 15 minutes watching Lily Rose Depp go through trauma. So that's Nosferatu. I'm sure I'm gonna get some hate mail about it because again, people love this movie. Look, if Robert Eggers wasn't doing a werewolf movie next, I would be excited for his next film, but I'm probably not going to watch a werewolf movie, so I'm going to miss that one. But maybe he'll do something in 2028 that I want to check out. He's definitely getting better as a filmmaker, and I give him, props for the success for this one. So that's it, man. Season 2 is kicked off officially. I'm not sure what we're doing next episode. I think we got to
So
figure
so
that
we
out.
do we do have a
Oh
guest.
shit. Okay.
We're still, determining which films we're gonna watch, but we're gonna have a pretty fun guest, and if everything works out, we're gonna have a pretty fun topic to talk about, like in the beginning of the podcast. But we're definitely gonna do what we do our drinks, watch our films, and yeah, this is fun. Hopefully we kick this off the right way, and hopefully people agree or disagree with our take on Nosferatu because
Well,
it's
they're gonna
starting to
have one
feel
or the other,
like,
right?
yeah, it's starting to feel like that, there's definitely two sides to this film. And yeah, I mean, anyone who's listened before, if a film's getting like a 2.5 on IMDb, that's probably my film. And if it's getting like an 8 or a 9, I'm probably not gonna like it. But hey, look, maybe I'm evolving as a person, Rich, and
Oh
maybe
no.
maybe this is the
I hope not.
2025 Jerry. Maybe this is the 2025 Jerry who could appreciate more artistic merit in filmmaking and not just get into the gore and the violence and poor storytelling that I normally like. I don't know.
If that's the case, it's going to be a long season. But all right, we'll see y'all next time, y'all. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.